Empire of the Sun, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring a super young 13-year-old Christian Bale, as well as regular-sized, adult-aged John Malkovich and Joe Pantoliano. It was nominated for 6 Oscars that year and lost all of them to The Last Emperor. It's a World War II movie told from a pretty unique perspective and showing us a not so often explored side of that conflict, because we follow a British boy named James who lives in Shanghai. The beginning of the film takes place in 1941, during the early days of the Japanese occupation of the Chinese territory, before Pearl Harbor happened and they joined the actual World War. As the British residents try to escape the city before the war fully descends on it, James becomes separated from his parents and ends up trying to survive on his own. Between the former Chinese servants now robbing his house of valuables, the Japanese soldiers taking control of the city, and the remnants of Western immigrants scavenging for food and supplies, life is difficult, especially for a young boy. And James eventually ends up in a prisoner of war camp and experiences life there. So, first of all, the film really shows you what an incredible talent Christian Bale has had, even at such a young age. It's possibly the best child performance I've seen ever, perhaps even better than DiCaprio's in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. James feels like an actual real person, not a child acting as one. And I think that's very rare, and to this extent that Bale exhibits here, it's impossibly rare. I think it's really just unbelievable stuff. Secondly, the film has the markings of an epic war film without actually being one. What I mean is, it never shows you the front and the actual fighting between two opposing armies. It's all shown from the perspective of civilians who are a little bit removed from the troops themselves. And of course, yet their lives are thrown upside down and ruined completely by this war. And despite theoretically being a smaller scale tale, Spielberg still manages to shoot the movie with a certain amount of grandeur. The sunset shots of Bale in the prisoner camp are gorgeous. The third act with the people moving across the ruined China are harrowing. The American attack plane sequence in the middle of the film is just exhilarating and technically impressive. And the everyday life in camp, it made me think of such classics as Bridge on the River Kwai. So there's a feeling about this film, the atmosphere of a grand, epic tale. I also like how the movie shows us James's feelings towards the war and specifically towards the soldiers. He is in a Japanese camp, so on the one hand, he is looking forward to the Americans winning the war and liberating them all. But on the other hand, he is also fascinated with planes and the bravery of Japanese aircraft pilots who he observes from across the fence. He has tons of respect for them. So it's this unusual dynamic where he doesn't hate the enemy but just tries to survive for himself. His relationship with Basie, played by John Malkovich, is also very well written and executed. The child and mentor type thing, with Basie consistently staying true to his opportunist, selfish nature. And also, despite being 2.5 hours long, the movie is expertly paced. It just flies by, never being boring or uneventful. As a final point, maybe, I think the ending is also incredibly poignant in how it shows the death of childhood, really, as a result of experiences of war. And the final frames bookend the movie, mirroring the opening sequence in a really powerful way. So I love this film. I think it should be up there with the other war movie classics, and I feel it isn't talked about as much as it perhaps deserves. I'm not sure why that is, but if you haven't had the chance to see it yet, do yourself a favor and check it out.